Hey there, welcome to episode 97 of the Quaggling Sand audio program. I am your host, Dan Hugo. We're recording this at 12:45 in the afternoon of Wednesday, September 17th, 2025. We normally publish on Wednesdays, 12:45 p.m. Pacific time, by the way. Normally publish on Wednesdays, usually try to go earlier in the day, but that's how it is. Today's title and topic, innovation. If you're not familiar with the Quaggling Sand audio program, it is generally a story, recollection, retelling, tale, sharing, audio essay, audio program. So it's me telling stories, not necessarily intended to have guests on. It's not outside the realm of possibility, but we haven't done it yet. So we're 97 episodes in, 98 really, if you count episode 0. Trying to cover a variety of things over the last half a century or so. Those first couple of years are a little sketchy, so kicks in somewhere around year 3-ish. But anyway, quaggling sand, by the way, a technical term you may use the more casual and less formal pins and needles to refer to quaggling sand. It is the sensation that you feel when circulation returns to, say, a hand or a foot, if you have been sitting or resting on them funny to limit circulation to them. There'll be a numbness and then quaggling sand. You can use it. It's people won't know what you're talking about. They are not so technical as we are, but you'll be in the know. Hopefully wherever you found this audio program, and there are a few more places, you're able to locate the episode description, which contains the show notes, including I think it's about a 2 or 3? I think it's 3 sentence summary, which I'll read to you. They're short sentences. And then there are a few links that we can go through, one to a book. And so there are 4 regular audio program links and one for this particular episode. I'm thinking about trimming the audio program links down a bit to 2 now that all of my audio programs have an associated homepage, which we'll touch on at the end of this episode. And so, yeah, I would like to cut down on the number of links I'm trying to send people to. It takes up a couple of minutes at the beginning of the show. We should be getting on to more interesting things than URLs. So on that note, let us begin so we can end. The show notes are thus the summary of today's episode. A long time ago, I had a variety of things I found interesting, maybe too many. At some point, I settled on becoming an engineer of some kind with the non-specific engineering major at Harvey Mudd College, a pretty good match. It turns out that what I was really interested in was and is innovation. So the links for today's episode, as usual, the profile page linking everything at buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo. A free-form profile page. I've had it there for years. It has links to all of my audio programs, various projects. There's some biographical information. There is a weekly audio program that's published on Mondays called Buy Me an Update. It's an update. It's right there in the name. It used to be published exclusively on Buy Me a Coffee, hence the name. It's available at buymeacoffee.com/danhugo/posts. But then after it's published there, it gets published via Spotify. It ends up on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, or Music, or both, whatever that is. There's an RSS feed, and then it also gets published to YouTube. It will be found on the Dan Hugo channel. Buy Me an Update. Same is true of Coffee Solo, which was published exclusively on ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/danhugo/posts. This is a program without a set schedule, without a particular topic focus. So it could be anything, could be any time. Probably just me talking, kind of an audio blog kind of thing, commenting on whatever. I usually try to keep politics and so on out of the normal productions, but this can be anything. It's not political, but I don't proactively try to leave that out. Politics just complicates things. There are several topics. Pub rules apply basically to most of my programming, but Coffee Solo could be whatever. I am not going to be offering any rants on one side or the other or anything, but I don't prevent myself from mentioning this or that. Anyway, so Coffee Solo, Buy Me an Update, formerly available exclusively on Ko-fi.com and buymeacoffee.com, exclusively now available. Spotify for creators, profile pages. The danhugo.com website is where those can be found. The Dan Hugo at Dan Hugo YouTube channel. These are all linked on buymeacoffee.com/danhugo. And for this audio program you're listening to now, the quagglingsand.com homepage. Quaggling, of course, the correct and accepted spelling, QUOGGLINGSAND, quagglingsand, of course, .com. So you can visit the homepage, which needs some beautification. We're going to touch on that at the end. And then the book link for today's episode. I mentioned a few more book titles, and you can find them if you like. But this particular book, I think, is most relevant to what I just said in the summary and in general. The title is The Things We Make by Bill Hammack, PhD. Hammack spelled Hammack, if you're just listening. There's a Goodreads link to start with. I'm never really sure if I should link to a Wikipedia page or if there's not a book website. Some sites have that, and he might have one, but I figured, Goodreads, not totally unreasonable. You can find it from there and other places and so on. You'll get the correct title and spelling. So yeah, The Things We Make. I read it probably a year ago. I should probably reread it. I think I checked it out. Did I check it out of the library? I can't remember. I'm a big fan of libraries. I think I've talked about this before. Anyway, The Things We Make by Bill Hammack. Good book. So let's get on with the rest of the audio program. The coin toss. By the way, I originally was going to make this episode why innovation, like why I think this is interesting. So the coin toss reference would have fit. Well, it still fits, I think, but it was going to fit into that sort of introduction. But anyway, so the coin toss, still relevant. There was a story floating around in college, a legend of sorts. I was going to say an urban legend, but it isn't that big. A legend of sorts around Gerald Van Hecke. He was a Harvey Mudd graduate from many, many, many years ago. And I'm a graduate from many, many years ago, so he was many more. Allegedly interested in everything, and as the story goes, when he had to declare a direction, he was going to flip a coin, declare a major. But, Harvey Mudd, you can pretty much mix and match. So, but he was going to declare the direction in which he was going to head to pursue his ongoing education, with one side of the coin for engineering, the other for physics. If the story is to be believed, and let's be honest, the flipped coin landed on its edge somehow. Probably one version would have it landing in the crack in a sidewalk. Another would be some sort of magical edge landing for no reason, which made the third choice the one he went with. Professor Van Hecke, chemist. I think he was probably the department chair at some point at Harvey Mudd. I think he's retired. My last interaction with him shows that he has aged like an old cheese. I did not flip a coin myself, and I did not include chemistry as one of my favorites, though I did enjoy chemistry in high school from the infamous Jack Trudeau, our coolest science teacher at Sunny Slope High School, who also taught physics. That was my junior year. Senior year was chemistry, which I found more interesting. But there was a time when I could have... Junior year was chemistry. Senior year was physics. It's all the same. But there was a time when I could have gone in a few different directions. My sophomore year biology teacher, Kim Breeze, a very unusual character. He liked to talk about his hairy arms. Whatever. He encouraged me to try to get into a biological field of some sort, medical, bioresearch, etc. It seems I had some sort of a proclivity for biology, but not being quite as interested in chemistry, that would have been a problem. And then, of course, I wanted to be in the Air Force. I was always interested in flying. I was always interested in computers, and there were a variety of other things. So a couple different possibilities there. As it happens, and I detailed some of my thinking about pursuing something in the world of engineering in episode 61 of this very audio program, titled, strangely enough, Why Engineering? A little correction here. Why engineering? Indeed. Here I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and while having pursued an engineering degree and various career travels, various Turns out Carious passes the spell checker. Carious. Carious? That I guess there's precarious and then carious. I didn't really know that. I'll have to look into that. But my various career travels with an engineering focus, an engineering degree is not actually required to be innovative, to pursue innovation in general. It has helped in my case, but it was not required. I fall on the side of thinking that college is actually good. I know it's getting a bad rap lately. I think maybe the fact that I went to a very small, at the time, our charter maximum student body size would have been 600, I think it was. And I don't know if it's grown since then. I think it probably has. But yeah, we were not 600. We were probably closer to 450, I think, when I was there across the classes. So the entire school was very small. It was like a small high school. And we were focused on more tech. The majors were engineering, physics, chemistry. They were adding a biology major. There was a computer science. I think that was a major at the time. It was probably evolved a little bit more. So yeah, fairly nerdy. They've added non-technical majors for some reason. I think that kind of breaks the mold a little bit, but that's another story for another time. But I happen to think that higher education beyond high school, beyond required, probably comes in handy for the right personality. I think the whole, you don't need to go to college, you don't need to have experience. I think those are misguided sometimes. But we'll talk about that some other time. So I included that book link. It's a good read page for The Things We Make. I do actually recommend giving that one a read if you or someone you know is in even the least bit interested in pursuit of some sort of innovation-oriented career or hobby even. I will underscore one particular point made in that book. I mean, it's a good book on the whole. Some of the reviews are a little strange that I've come across, but I found it to be interesting in the context of my own lived experience. So maybe your mileage may vary, but pretty good. But one that I have mentioned in my own travels incorrectly, or maybe inappropriately, but yeah, I think objectively incorrectly, as it turns out, the suggestion that engineering is applied physics or applied science. And I've made that comparison before. Like, oh, engineering is kind of like applied physics or applied chemistry or applied science of some sort. But there is so much more to it than that. And it doesn't always have to be scientific, even engineering. So sometimes it's quite literally just making use of the resources you have to accomplish some goal. I think that's a form of engineering. Yes, we apply science when we pursue innovation as an engineer or otherwise, but my oversimplification, usually half serious, a description of my academic pursuits in those early days, probably the first decade or so after I graduated from Harvey Mudd, and I was in Silicon Valley most of the time, is a classic removal of the most interesting parts that are usually not fully teachable in an academic setting when it comes to innovation, and it is no small part of that book. The notion of applying things like intuition, previous experience, shared knowledge acquired in situ to leverage among collaborators, and of course the specific path to implementing innovation. I like to separate innovation from implementation because sometimes there are extra steps in there. So you don't just say, oh, look, we innovated, we're done. But can we manufacture it? Can we distribute it? Can people actually use it? You have to actually implement your innovation. That's, I think, a different step. Science can still be in there quite a bit sometimes, but science is about discovery, and that's why this is mostly the applied part is kind of not really accurate. So science is about discovery, research, understanding, characterization. Yes, the outcomes can be applied, but to think that engineering or innovation in general is merely an application of these outcomes, well, there is a lot more to it, mostly because rather than trying to characterize some process or effect as one might do in chemistry or physics, research, or even application of specific research outcomes, or to advance understanding of the complexity that is biology, for example, innovation is characterizing some problem or possibility gap, like what could be, and then combining all the things, could be science, could be what we have before us, natural resources, populations, whatever it is, combining all these things into some way of addressing the problem or possibility gap, and maybe solving the problem or closing the gap, right? Does that make sense? Hopefully. So immersion helps, I think. And that's one thing about chemistry, physics, the pure sciences. Usually there's like a laboratory involved. Usually you're trying to isolate so that you can identify the effect. You can model, you can remove variables, you can have control system, controlled experiments, experimental controls. So you can isolate those variables, you pursue the scientific method, all the best practices to reach usable, repeatable, falsifiable conclusions. So I have found that immersing myself in the thing, whatever it is, makes all the difference. And that's where innovation differs from scientific research. And applying scientific research, you actually probably want to do the opposite. You don't want to be in a laboratory. You want to be out in the setting, in the environment where the innovation can take place, or at least have experience in it. This is not something that can be taught, only learned when you get right down to it. The most obvious example that I have spoken of a few times here and in the Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program is the exciting world of food trucks or mobile vending. Don't worry, we're only going to cover this for about 5 more minutes. So in my travels, I was working on 7 food trucks in the Bay Area for my first person experience, working with organizers of food truck and similar events. So I kind of saw their perspective and what they needed and what was missing and so on. Forming 2 business league organizations, one in the Bay Area, the Bay Area Mobile Food Vendors Association, and another in Vegas, the Nevada Mobile Vendors Association. Lobbying 2 city councils to eventually change regulations that would be more pro mobile business, mobile food vending in particular. And that was in the Bay Area. That was actually in Sunnyvale, where I lived, and one town over in Mountain View. I did that on behalf of the Bay Area Mobile Food Vendors Association, of course, and speaking with developers of various tools, learning why they tend not to be great. The tools, that is, the developers are fine. Things like roaming hunger, food trucks here in Vegas, we have the awful Where's the Food Truck platform, which is, I don't even know if people use it anymore, but they often make the same mistake, that they are not immersed. I'll leave that there for now. As part of my role in the Maker Innovator Group, while I was working for Intel, it was less than 5 minutes. While I was working for the Intel Corporation, I traveled around to many places, domestic and otherwise, and observed in person the nature of innovation culture and the actual application of the methodology of innovation by people of various ages and backgrounds, which informs my attitudes in general today at city or locality scale. In other words, can you be a startup city? Can you be other than next Silicon Valley? It's really not that easy. Speaking of locality scale, city scale, community scale, more than just, 4 people sitting at a table in a coffee shop. I have found since my return to Silicon Valley in my second tour from 2005 to 2013 and my time in the greater Vegas area that engaging with people on the ground and at some time engaging with and more often observing with great intensity the actions and outcomes brought about by the local government and affiliated local government non-government agencies. Affiliation of local non-government organizations or agencies with the government can be far more informative than simply complaining about these things. So roll your sleeves up and see what's going on. Like, okay, let me pull this door open and see what's going on behind it. This is more practical, a form of immersion, since any one person is automatically immersed where they live. Just it's a question of degree, right? You are in it. Do you take the time to make some observations and see what sorts of actions might benefit you or people around you or maybe the entire locality? Who knows? That's why some people run for office. I'm going to guess they are disappointed soon after, but who knows? More is better if there's any interest in innovating those kinds of solutions. So more interaction, more engagement, more awareness, more conversation, just generally being more in the know. Now, I'm not going to say knowing the characters involved is always beneficial. Knowing how systems work in a general sense is more useful. Kind of along the way, you'll get to know some of the people, but you can hopefully determine whether any one person is getting in the way or enabling things to move forward, etc. So, merely knowing the people is not the whole of it. It's more about knowing how the system is working or not working. I have a whole audio program about that, FFS Talk. What works, what doesn't, and what can we do about it? But that's another story for another time. So the thing, if immersion made innovation a snap, surely I would have hot and cold running money spigots in all of my 25 bathrooms in my mansion, right? Well, it isn't quite that easy. Let us get this first one out of the way immediately. Luck is a real thing. Sometimes it is available in excess, sometimes just enough, sometimes not quite. I usually fall in the not quite bucket, or I slip on it, land in it. On reading other books like The Innovator's Dilemma by Clayton M. Christensen, a sequel of sorts, The Innovator's Solution, Creating and Sustaining Successful Growth by the same Christensen and Michael E. Rayner. And right now I'm halfway through Innovation and Entrepreneurship by Peter F. Drucker. The business of innovating is not a snap of the fingers, and it doesn't always work. I can attest to that. Obviously, now why it doesn't work, that's a different story. Obviously, having resources at hand can make a substantial difference, with the billionaires of today making huge swings previously impossible even by companies of reasonable size. Usually the government would have to be involved and large funding infrastructure and whatnot for these, the Manhattan Project size things, the moonshots. There's a reason they call them moonshot projects, right? Because the getting to the moon was pretty expensive and largely political, although there was a tremendous amount of science that came out of it, which is nice. Having resources on hand can make a big difference. And this was rarely the thing of startups without substantial backing, and never of individuals, of course. There was a time, the Edison and Ford days perhaps, when one person had the various ingredients needed to turn innovation into implementation. Was it just those two, for example? No, not really. But maybe that I only mentioned two well-known names from the past is somewhat telling. Like, it wasn't a population of so many characters. By the way, if you read the book, The Things We Make, in the links, you will learn that the person that gets the credit for innovation is often a part of the process. Right place, right time, happen to have their name on a door, the correct door, etc. A part of a larger team of innovators working behind the scenes, usually not getting the credit they deserve. The moonshot had how many thousands or even tens of thousands of people involved in all the various systems and interconnected complication and complexity. So you couldn't really say, oh, well, we got to the moon because of, fill in the blank. My obstacle I have yet to determine how to best overcome comes down to my collaborators. So the thing could be luck, it could be access to resources. So my thing, collaborators. I don't have luck or access to resources, but my collaborators are always the first headache, the first pain in my head that I can feel. Not that I am blaming them. It is a matter of whom I chose to be in my inner circle at any particular time for a particular undertaking. So I make bad choices. Not necessarily of bad people, but there has to be some sort of synergy, if we can use a Silicon Valley favorite word, paradigm shift. No, so there has to be something other than, oh, you're interested? Okay, come on, have a seat. Time and time again, I select people who appear to be interested and interesting, checking some boxes, but not enough of those boxes. I have just finished a book getting a ton of attention as I record this, Empire of AI, Dreams and Nightmares of Sam Altman's OpenAI by Karen Howe, I think it is, H-A-O. She's an accomplished journalist, author, fairly technical background. And if nothing else, we gain some insight into the character of one of our billionaires from this book, driving the world into a ditch, in my opinion. Perhaps that will happen, with details about the team Altman assembled based on the energy behind AI research many years ago through today, and claims about pursuing it for public good when OpenAI was going to be a nonprofit, making everything open source, hence the name OpenAI. How things change, just like don't be evil, etc. The politics and betrayals that went on behind the scenes, the various Altman character flaws, and there are many. My sense is that the story kept changing internally, and that the public stories about various OpenAI departures are several and also telling. And no, I have not pursued something so lofty as OpenAI, but the take home from this accounting, the book, and from my own experiences on a much, much smaller scale and with far fewer zeros to the left of the decimal point in my valuations, is that people we choose to work with can make all the difference. And no, I am not taking Altman's side by any means. Those people chose to work with him in most cases and for him, but it's a two-way street, right? So sometimes they chose to accept the working conditions and the chaos and whatnot. In my case, it's usually the fact that the people that I have selected to try to work with are not so invested in various ways. And that usually comes back in noticeable and painful ways. Production by street. So anyway, yeah, it's finding your co-founders, finding people that will see the vision, understand the possibilities, and know that innovation is not a snapping of the fingers and so on. And that we may or may not have any luck on our side, and that we may not have the resources to get from A to B. We might have them to get from M to N. So you kind of need to have people that are on the same page. Some true believers would help. It's tricky, and I think that's been my number one pain point is when I explain the thing, whatever it is, and someone says, oh, that sounds good. That's not enough. So some take-home lessons. I mention the food truck topic frequently, maybe more frequently than some might like, but for my purposes is a great comparison since I basically take two distinctly different cultural settings, the San Francisco Bay Area versus the greater Vegas area, and attempt to form a similar strategy to tackle similar business challenges for mobile entrepreneurs. So essentially looking at how small businesses operate in a particular vertical, right? They're mobile, they're moving around on wheels. Innovation culture makes a substantial difference if there is to be any useful proximal collaboration. So in the Bay Area, very different. There's a culture of innovation pouring out into the Bay through any drain pipes that will reach it. The difference between doing something new in the Bay Area, where Silicon Valley is, for better or worse, and Vegas, which purports to be the next Silicon Valley, I've commented on that many times, is vast and somewhat disheartening. In the Bay Area, I could literally walk up to a food truck owner and say, you guys, I think you would benefit from having a business league, like a chamber of commerce, or not quite a union, that's for employees, but a business league for small businesses. Chamber of Commerce is the usual thing. So you're forming a business league to behave in the best interest of the colleagues. Yeah, they're your competition sometimes, but mobile food being so mobile vendors in general, you don't have to compete with the same company or business that's across the street from you every day. They can be anywhere. And in fact, when you elevate the entire market, it benefits everyone. So it's a co-opetition environment. So I said, hey, you would benefit from this. The people in the Bay Area being as innovation minded, either directly or just through their daily connection, their customers, the businesses they were working for and with, and so on. The mindset was so drastically different from that I found here in Vegas, which I continue to find here in Vegas, which is very much about, well, show me something first, and I don't trust you, and I don't believe you. And that's not a great way to start off in an innovation culture when people don't see the value of collaboration because of a lack of trust or confidence. Innovation culture makes that substantial difference. That's just the take-home lesson. My own travel exposure to innovation cultures, plural, on the ground, as I like to say, should be considered if I present my informed opinion concerning the cultivation of innovation culture here at home, right? So not necessarily about food trucks, although food trucks kind of. But in general, surely my resume and the current existence of the Innovate for Vegas Foundation, which I helped to co-found and am currently the managing director of, are two of several bullet items I would hope could be considered when I render an opinion on how we, as a locality and not some exclusive group, might pursue a more vital ecosystem and a more vibrant culture to support the notions already the subject of so much hype. That will be the next Silicon Valley, that we're a global innovation hub, that will be Hollywood 2.0, etc. I mention those a lot. But I was so often labeled a pessimist, a Debbie Downer. I've actually heard that applied to me more than once. So now and then this would come up like, oh, you're You're always so negative. I would say, I'm not negative. I'm telling you, here's what we would have to overcome to get to the place where everybody thinks we already are. Like, you're telling us too much. You're trying to provide too much insight that's just going to get in the way. That the value of time spent trying to make the point, from my end, essentially went to zero. This is a political lesson I somehow failed to learn time and time again. But talking about innovation culture where there is very little is what it is, perhaps. And it's difficult to overcome. So one way I describe this to people is you basically have to go around the obstruction, and then they will eventually go, oh, wait, how'd you get so far ahead? Like, because I didn't let you get in my way. The only way to avoid forming an unproductive team or gaggle of collaborators, and I'm using the term unproductive as one less pessimistic label, so we'll just say unproductive, is to remain what is typically called a solopreneur, pursuing ideas alone. There are some pros and cons. That's maybe another episode some other time. So it can be remarkably frustrating for a variety of reasons, including a response I give to people when they ask me, how's it going? How's it coming along? Or similar. My glib answer, well, it could be more glib, but it is pretty glib. Well, I'm here speaking with you, which means nobody is working on it, whatever it is at the moment. That can be a challenge. That's what I tell them. Like that's one reason it's not, there's only one person the wearing the many hats. And so if I'm wearing the be outside and talk to other people hat, then no one else is wearing the continue to be productive and advance the cause hat. There's only one head on which these hats rest. And so that can be a little bit frustrating. It could be, I think frustrating is a good word. We'll leave that there. In other words, distraction is all or nothing when you wear all of the hats. I suspect there is some variation of be careful what you wish for in this situation. So we're coming to the end. Tenacity. I was told by a city staffer who recently departed his role with the city of Las Vegas under strange circumstances, like he just disappeared. I think he's still around. I think he's still somewhere, but he was never the type to really be personally communicative. He has other things. So when he worked for the city, though, he was always 100% responsive, very supportive of the Innovate Vegas Foundation, and would always respond to emails and would book our events for free, very supportive in that way. So yeah, so of course he's gone. But I would tell I tried to do this. I tried to get them to mention something. I tried to get them to promote something with students or whatever over the last 4 years, three and a half years. And he said, I admire your tenacity. I do not tend to give up easily, though I would suggest that my tenacity gauge is not reading full. It used to, but I think as time passes, the needle is coming off the F, moving to the left. It's still over 50%, but I am not sure where to go for a top off in my neighborhood. Where do I go to get some more tenacity? I recently proclaimed a return to Silicon Valley thinking. Surely not as is found in the Vegas ecosystem. Not yet, not for a while. That you can listen to Cafe Genius Impresarios for a very long, ongoing treatise on cultivating an innovation culture, building. You cannot really build, but building the circumstances, focusing on the pillars that make up and sustain an entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem and so on. But the thinking I brought with me from the real Silicon Valley. So in other words, when I say Silicon Valley thinking, I mean the way it used to be back in the old days. The thinking I encountered in so many places beyond Vegas, when I was working for Intel, in the Maker Innovator Group, going to hackathons, and I was on more academic so college campuses or more academic pursuits, more research facilities, and so on. The thinking that many believe is already here in Vegas, but is not, which is not found in any sort of critical mass just yet. That's why I say not yet, but not for a while. But it could be down the road. Give it some time. I don't believe you can sprinkle money on top of a place and turn it into something it is not. In the ecology terminology, the climax community is what a place will naturally be, the ecology of some region. It could be a desert, it could be a rainforest, it could be a savanna. So to turn the desert of Las Vegas into the destination fun economy that it is today, you have to spend a lot of money. Roads, buildings, investment in capital to provide entertainment and to sustain that entertainment. You need to have air conditioning, water. Water is in short supply in this region. Temperatures are getting hotter. Having air conditioning, keeping people comfortable, keeping people wanting to come here. To simply say, okay, now we're going to be the next Silicon Valley, you don't just turn a switch and then that's happening. You got to spend money to shift the ecology, the ecosystem, either from one to another or now add another. You cannot say, the desert is interesting, but I would also like it to be a rainforest. Let's have both. Right? You probably could do it. It will take a tremendous amount of money ongoing and it will take time. So I make the same argument here frequently. So there's no critical mass of these things here. So and it will take some time if this happens. This means I need to advance my own causes and ideas. Let me fix that real quick. And my own causes and ideas and pursue innovation as I once did, as so many did around me back when, and by the way, Silicon Valley is not the place and environment it once was, in my opinion. But the way people used to pursue what they wanted to try to accomplish in the Silicon Valley days of old. An aspiration needs to keep that in mind. If people think, oh, we're going to be the next Silicon Valley or we're going to be the next whatever, it's, you don't just snap your fingers. You do need to have people around, some sort of a critical mass that will be on that page. So that's a challenge. The aspiration of being the next Silicon Valley, not a snap of the fingers, to reiterate. A second or third wind is in order to get there. I think I probably share this observation with many a solopreneur trying to turn ideas into implementation, whether they're here in Vegas or anywhere else. It is quite easy to allow task debt, whether it's technical debt, which is a term frequently used in my profession, or any other implementation related debt. So all the things that are put off or delayed, or we need to wait for funding, we need to wait for some other event to happen, so we need to put it off, or we need to, I need to get around to fixing that, to doing it better so that it's less fragile. The list goes on. Even the website for this very audio program you're listening to now, quaglingsand.com, is behind on its design implementation. Yes, it is up and running. The mechanics of it are fine. There's a web server. There's functioning HTML. There is site verification. There are links to the right things. But it's ugly. It's not appealing in any way. So I'm not really, aside from promoting it within this audio program itself, I'm not really getting that link out there enough because I don't feel it's something that would bring people back. So it has to be attractive on their first landing so that they would consider coming back. So yep, up and running, ready to be made aesthetic in any way and more functionally useful. It can do a few more things than it's doing right now. It's what we call a one pager, but it's an unattractive one pager. It's almost like a sketch of what I would like it to be. And it's not even that. It's another item on the to-do list. And while I'm recording this audio program, nobody else is working on it. See how that works? So all of this is to be continued. On that note, I will let you get on with your day. My clock says this was going on for about 41 and a half minutes, coming up on 42 minutes. When we truncate the silence and whatnot, it'll probably be closer to 39 and a half, 39 to 40 minutes. So not too bad. Innovation is important. Maybe it's worth 10 times that amount of discussion, but it's only me. Talking to myself is fascinating. Let me tell you, but maybe not for you. On that note, have a great whenever. We'll catch you later. Bye-bye.